Welcome to Club Soda's Mindful Drinking Festival. We're online, global, and as always, absolutely free. Hi, I'm Dru, and I'm one of the co-founders of Club Soda.
And I'm Laura, the other co-founder of Club Soda. We help you change your drinking in ways that help you live well. So whether you're looking to cut down, stop for a bit, or quit, you can find what you need from podcasts and books and courses on joinclubsoda.com. This festival, we've brought you an amazing lineup from over 100 people from across the world.
And our programme this time really is global.
Every day starts down under with me, Sarah. As well as organising the festival in Australia, I spend my time looking for alcohol-free alternatives and tips for people who choose not to drink, but who still want to live a social, fun and adventurous life.
And I'll be wrapping up each day here in the States. I'm Amanda, your US festival host and coordinator, and I'm also a mindset coach who helps women change their relationship with alcohol so that they can start living their most authentic life.
Each day with a rolling programme of inspirational panels, conversations, social events, and opportunities to discover new low and no alcohol drinks.
So whether you want inspiration to change your drinking,
Or to connect with other people,
or you want to discover and enjoy a new low and no alcohol drink,
The Mindful Drinking Festival is for you.
cheers!
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 cheers.
Good afternoon, hello, and thank you for joining us at the Finding Your Fix in Journaling panel. My name's Kirsty Mulcahy. I'm going to do a little introduction of myself, and then I'm going to introduce you to our wonderful panel this afternoon. And thank you everybody for being here through this modern technology. It's all a bit scary for me, a bit woo-woo. So when I was prepping for this today, I got a little bit concerned about my capabilities to do this. A little bit self-doubt creeped in. So I looked over at my desk and my many journals. I have lots of journals that I write in. And I wrote a list of why I can do this. So I think this is a good way for me to start. Today I am 948 days sober, and journaling has been a massive, massive tool for me in my sobriety. I almost said that journaling was a habit to me, and maybe more about that later, because I do have a lot of notepads. I run an online sober community called Sober Buzz, where I encourage people to journal, and we have sober events, and we even hand out journals at our events for people to do some more journaling. I'm also a qualified transformational coach, and I'm self-love coach, and I have a niche in helping grey area drinkers and sober curious women learn to love themselves enough to remove any toxic habits from their lives. Journaling and list writing is one of the cornerstones of me living a life that I'm proud of and loving myself. So that is who I am, and that is why I'm here today. We are joined by Tammi Salas. Hello, Tammi. She is a sober, dignified, creative woman. She's a one-to-one creative accountability and sober coach. And she hosts the Unruffled Podcast, which I loved, Tammi. I've listened to a number of them since we last emailed. And she's been sober since July 2017. And she runs a workshop called the Proof of Life Project, which I hope to get involved in and maybe do with you. So thank you for being here, Tammi. It's a delight to meet you. Rakhee is here with us, and she is a London-based yoga teacher and writer. Rakhee previously co-founded a youth arts and education charity for over 20 years. And she currently teaches a course focusing on women feeling happier in their bodies, and explores this through yoga, meditation, movement and writing. And she wants us to connect with both body and mind. And I love this, Rakhee, because you said they're not separate, and I think that's so important. I really enjoyed reading that. Amanda Grace from Pilgrim Soul. Hello, Amanda. She's a creative journaling. She runs a creative journaling and coaching community. This is my favourite, for women who are done with being good and ready to be unapologetically themselves. I've read that so many times today because I think it's amazing. She wants us to nourish, honour and allow ourselves to be as we are, not as we think we are. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. And then Dru, the Club Soda co-founder, who I struggled to find info about, but I dug deep. She's passionate about the well-being of others, as well as the planet. And we're very, very grateful for you coordinating this fantastic online global event, Dru. And I hope to find out some more about you today. Thank you so much. So, well, I just throw it out there and say, how did everybody get into journaling? What's the story behind that? Tammi, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start.
Or Rakhee, thank you.
Oh, you go. Go ahead, Tammi. I'll follow on.
Okay.
I did journal as a young girl, but my mother used to read my journals, so then I stopped doing that. But for me, creatively, about a year before I quit drinking, I started an accountability project where I was going to make art in a journal every day and or put my lists in a journal. And I kept that accountability practice up for an entire year, from January 1st to December 31st. And it was the first time I'd kept my word to myself in a really long time. So followed the next year, I was hooked, and I was like, I'm going to do this every single day. And eventually I would start a gratitude practice. I got sober in February of 2015, actually. So I've been doing this, a daily list for every single day, an illustrated, artful gratitude list since December 10th of 2015.
Amazing. Thank you. And I've seen the pictures on your social media. They are really beautiful. You do a lot of work in your journals, don't you?
Yeah. It's my foundation to my recovery. It's the thing that I go to. It's a place to deposit thoughts and feelings and art and just little nuggets that make me really happy. They're just for me. I share them, but they're mainly for me, for my recovery.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing them, because I really enjoyed looking at them. Thank you. Rakhee, thanks.
Yeah, so I when Tammy spoke about journaling as a child, I remember being given a journal and or a diary, and I didn't really get it really. I've got a friend who's kept a diary, I think, since she was about 10, which is amazing, and I think for her it's this amazing record of her life. But I didn't really get it, and then I think I was in my mid-20s, and a friend of mine told me about the Artist's Way, and I just thought, oh, what is this? And she told me about the morning pages, which is literally is writing 3 pages each day, and I just thought, oh, I can't do, I don't really get that, but I'll give it a go. So I did try doing the Artist's Way, and in fact I didn't do a lot of it, but what I did do was the journaling and the morning pages, and in fact that's really stuck with me, and I'm nowhere near my mid-20s anymore, unfortunately, but I just find that, in fact, writing something every day really helps, and I there are days I don't do it. There are little periods of time where I don't do it, but I notice such a difference when I do. And now I do get, if I haven't done it for a while, I do get the urge. And for me, it's almost like a meditation. It's a great way to start my day, because I can actually really explore what's annoying me and some of the things that I don't know myself that are annoying me, and then I suddenly find myself writing them down. I go, that's something I have to deal with. But sometimes it's also a great way of, in fact, just keeping lists, my to-do list, what's going on, and then other things creep in. But I've recently been using it also as a way to celebrate the good as well, because it can be, it's a great way to have like an early morning kind of brain dump or a whinge or whatever, but it's also a really good way to celebrate the kind of good things, all the things you don't realize that are good. And I've just felt it's brought a lot of stability into my life. So yeah, I frequently have times where I don't do it, but in fact it is a cornerstone of for me of living mindfully. So I'd really, if someone took that ability away, I'd miss it, and I think I'll definitely find a way to do that in another way. And I encourage everyone to have a go. Really, it's so helpful.
Yeah, for me, listening to the Rakhee, it really allows me to be in the present moment, and I was kind of picking that up on what you were saying, to focus on right now and that moment in time. And when you said writing down things that annoy you, sometimes I can find it comes back to me. It's the annoying one. It's not the person that's annoying me, because it really helps me work through these things. So that's very interesting. And what about you, Amanda?
Well, I guess I've been doing it all my life in different formats, and my relationship to journaling is it very much transcends the outward expression on the page, and it is very much an inward attendance. So I've been I've been journaling all my life. I would have as a child had the diary with the lock on it, and I would have done the Dear Diary thing. I was also a letter writer. I always had pen pals. And that's a form of journaling to me, because another thing journaling very much about what it's about for me is connection. And then as I evolved into a teenager, journaling became a way for me to hide my secrets in plain sight. So I evolved from the writing practice as a teenager, and I began to find ways of saying things that if my journal was found, couldn't, that if it was discovered, nobody would know what I was talking about. I even invented my own code at one point in hand, so that I could. So I just had a way of symbolically expressing myself on the page. And I don't know if Tammi said her journal was read, but I did have a letter read by. I wrote a letter to a friend of mine as a teenager, and her mother read it, and all hell broke loose. So. I got very, very good at hiding my secrets in plain sight. And over time, how that has evolved is just, it has always been there. It has always been the thing that has accompanied me through life. It has taken the form of songwriting in other times. So this practice of spilling outwardly into some sort of a container, whatever's going on inside. But it wasn't until my mid-30s that I started to... that it started to evolve into a much more therapeutic, conscious, I would say, a consciously therapy. It was always therapeutic, but a more consciously therapeutic process. And I became a student of it myself and trained as a psychotherapist and in many creative modalities. And so my own experience has been that alongside the desire to get sober, or maybe even get stop medicating, or just get sober is the best way to put it, and that's not just from alcohol, it means emotionally sober as well. Alongside that desire has been the desire to more deeply know myself and to live more wholeheartedly from that place of knowing. And so that is my ping with journaling now. I do it for the trueness. I do it for the truth of who I am. I do it for the revelation. And it's a very intuitive, all-encompassing process. Like I said, it's like the weather. It's never not happening at this stage. So I love it, and I love to teach it.
Great. And you touched on something there that I was going to mention anyway. You spoke about how even letter writing can be a form of journaling. And I think sometimes we forget when we do something ourselves over and over again, and somebody who's never done it before, they think, where do I start? How do I journal? I remember thinking, how do I journal? Not knowing that it just meant even writing a list of what I had to do or my feelings. So yeah, letter writing, list writing, writing about an event that happened, all this is journaling. It doesn't have to be these, grand journals that we sometimes see. Just to start off with a list or a letter. I've done a journal all the way through lockdown. And my daughter's 17 next week, and she said, maybe my kids could read it and learn about lockdown. I thought, oh, no, best not. Because,
Well, Kirsty, I teach people to scribble as a starting point. Yeah. Not even write, just scribble. Just move the hand and scribble, scribble, scribble.
Fantastic. Great. Because I think sometimes so many self-care and self-worth stuff is online, but people don't know what it means or where to start. So to say that you start off with a scribble, we can all start there, can't we?
Everybody can scribble.
Amazing. Yep, definitely. My handwriting's like a scribble, but it's because I'm left-handed. I blame it on that. Okay. Drew, what about you? Are you journaling?
So I've been journaling as close to daily practice. I really resonate with what Rakhee said about, that commitment to a daily practice, and then sometimes, drifting away from it. Actually, one of the things that I've noticed, because I've been journaling now consistently for the past 3 years, I've had an on and off relationship. And actually, one of the things that I noticed looking back is that often my journaling was around periods of change. And I would stop at those moments where I started to uncover things which were really uncomfortable. and I'd walk away. And actually what I was doing is I was walking away from change as well. It wasn't just about stopping journaling. I was saying, I'm not ready for this right now. But, you know, over the past 3 years, I found myself in a position where I am ready to face some of those more difficult things and to use journaling. I really resonate with what Amanda says about using it as a way of being present to what's going on. One of the things that I noticed myself now is that the act of journaling has become a bit of a barometer for my internal emotional well-being. You know, so one of the questions that I'll be asking myself, if it's been 3-4 days that I haven't journaled, almost the first question I'm asking myself as I'm writing is, what's been going on? What didn't you want to own up to that was happening right now? What do you need to be present to? And then really using the act of writing as a way of exploring my inner world. And yeah, so I'm really not in a Dear Diary kind of school of journaling. I think anyone reading my diary, you know, the idea of a diary of lockdown, you're not going to discover an awful lot about what's gone on in the world, but you will discover quite a lot about how I felt about different things along the way. But yeah, it's become really kind of foundational in my way of being in the world. I actually genuinely, I don't think now could imagine stopping. I've been through enough peaks and troughs with it that it's just bedded into how I approach my life.
Yeah.
Good. I really want to touch on how journaling can help people in their sobriety or people who are sober curious. Something that I find really helpful for clients and for myself in my own journey is to write down your whys, why you don't want to drink, why, or any situation, why you don't want to do something, you know, the goods and the bads, the negatives and the positives. And I have that at the very beginning of my journal. And we all kind of touched on gratitude. That's an amazing way to start. And my gratitude journal always starts every single morning with sobriety. And as soon as I write sobriety, there's screeds of stuff comes from it. So for people who are looking to start out in sobriety or have just started or sober curious, how can journaling help them in that process? Who would like to answer that? Tammy, can I come to you?
Yeah, for sure. That's been a really big piece of my recovery. I had a sponsor. I'm part of a 12-step program, and I had a sponsor recommend to me to write a 30-item gratitude list for 30 days. I was almost a year sober at this point. I thought it was a ridiculous request. I thought she was outrageous. How dare she? How dare she?
Yeah.
I thought it would be impossible to come up with 30 things that I would be grateful for. The state that I was in that first year is just everything feels turned upside down. You know, your body is healing, your mind is healing, your soul is healing. So I took a challenge because I happen to also be a people pleaser. So I was like, sure, I'll take that challenge. And by the end of the 30 days, I love the practice so much. I mean, it only took those 30 days. I was screaming from the rooftops. I was creating a gratitude circle with women that I knew, that I admired, that I had met online, started sharing lists that way. But what I realized was that what I shared with you earlier is that I was doing art every single day as an accountability practice and to kind of stretch myself as an artist. And I was also going to be keeping a 30-item list every day. And it was too many things. You know, when you're newly sober, you got to keep it simple, right? I can't have a long list of things I need to do. So I decided to marry the practice a couple months in and decided to put it together. And what that does for me, it was really hard to dig deep. So I didn't dig that deep at first. The first thing on my list always was my sobriety or waking up without a hangover. Those were the first things that topped the list. And then I'd go through, you know, roof over my head, food in the fridge. It was really basic. My husband, my kid, my friends, you know, it was just this very one-word kind of practice. But the more you practice gratitude, the more you have it. And so I would go out into the world after writing a list first thing in the morning, and I would go out into the world and I'd be driving. I was like, oh, I got to remember to be thankful for that fox that just crossed my right in front of me, in front of the road, you know. And then you're taking it. So you're seeing things. You're like, oh, I got to write that down later. And pretty soon your mind has shifted. Your perception of things changes. My perspective of things, of my life changed. And I found that like I could write things when times were good. And one thing that I share is I have the easiest time writing lists when things are bad. So you would think that would be the opposite, but actually gratitude kind of has grown. It changes the neural pathways in your brain. There's science behind it. But just from a very, you know, I'm just a girl who writes down on paper, right? It helped shift how I looked at really hard situations. And I think that's where I kind of I'm in one of those times right now. And so I can dig a little deeper, put my feelings on the page. Since I share them publicly, I'm a little bit like Amanda. I'm a student of Amanda's as well and a friend. And it's not code, but it kind of is, right? I'm going to say things on the page that I know what they mean. I'm sharing my pages publicly as an act of service. I very much think it's a 12th step thing for me. But the gratitude is real. It's not fake. But there is a code so that I don't spill it all out for the public. But it's I know what it means. I hope that answered that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think to say when things are harder for us, I think I remember my own coach asking me, was I creative? And I just said no, because to me, creativity meant doing really great art or playing music. And then she says, but you're right. And, that's your creative outlet. And I felt so proud to do that. And I was looking back on old journals from last year. I had a terrible, terrible breakup last year. I wasn't expecting it. And it blindsided me. And one of the things I'd written in my gratitude journal one day was that I was grateful for the pen I was writing with. So I was really scraping the bottom of the barrel, but I forced myself into doing it. And when I read that a few weeks ago, I was so happy to know that I still got up and done that gratitude list, and to see how far I've come, to look back on my journals as well. That really helps me. Or to remind myself of some amazing times, because like yourself, Tammy, I think, oh, look at that sunset, look at that tree, look how beautiful it is. I'm continually seeing great things. So I loved the answer. It was fantastic. Great. And what about you, Amanda, with the sobriety work and grey area coaching and stuff? How do you think that helps?
Well, I'm dying to answer a question I see there in the comments as a kind of form of, as part of this. So the question is, do you ever struggle to be honest with yourself when journaling, when coming across thoughts or feelings you don't like? And so, as part of recovery is telling the truth, right? It is just like being honest, and stop saying fine when you're not, and stop saying okay when you're not. And so how do you begin? Where do you start with being honest? And do you ever struggle being honest with yourself? Yes, but I have tricks for this. And I would say if I specialize in anything, it's helping people be honest on the page. And the way that I do that is through this kind of like mad automatic writing. But I also, I can push it back and cover it up. So creating a privacy, a space to be private, or a space in which it feels safe and private for you by making your writing illegible. It's another one of the, your writing doesn't have to be legible. And I don't read back over my journals. I have a little journal here. This is my journal that I keep notes that I do want to revisit. But in my art journals, it's where all the angst goes in, and all the stuff that I am just testing out and I'm not really okay with, the honest, but it has to come out. So it's like a testing ground. And over on my Instagram page, I actually have an IGTV video, how to be more emotionally honest on the page. And it's about using art to push the words back into the page and let symbology take over, so that you have some time by yourself, just getting used to telling the truth, getting used to being honest, and also alongside that, working on accepting yourself in your truth. So not judging yourself for having these thoughts and feelings, accepting that, just kind of allowing yourself to be honest without the added judgment on top, which calls the shame, just keeps you trapped. So I hope that helps that thought or that question about, thoughts and feelings that you don't like. And she's asking again, what if the honest feelings are unhealthy, like feelings of hatred towards someone, which isn't very helpful? I would counter that and say it is very helpful, because it's good to know.
Yeah, I agree.
It is totally good to know. There's no, the only thing that's unhealthy is pretending you don't feel a way you feel, pretending you don't think a way you think. But if you can find somebody to hold you in that and allow you to tell the truth and be honest and inquire into the hatred because it's not who you are, it's just a thing that's going on for you right now. And hatred is really just about disowning something. And so journaling can help you reclaim whatever that is, and just inquire into, why am I disowning this part of me, and how can I heal? How can I heal that? And honesty is the way, it's the path.
And I think to add to Susie's question as well, I was listening to your answer as well, Amanda, when we stop drinking, we start feeling all these feelings that we have suppressed. feelings that we are ashamed of, and I don't want anybody to be ashamed, but there's feelings that we might feel ashamed of at that time, but to put them down on paper, they're valid for you. You're feeling them for a reason. And once they're on paper, you can start to unpick why that's there, and
Absolutely.
Is it really hatred, or is it betrayal, or is it, is it just sadness? So I think once we stop drinking and start journaling, we start to feel things that we've never felt before, and it can be terrifying. And Amanda, you've said that perfectly. Find somebody who can hold you in that safe space where you can share that information. And I do that as a coach. Sometimes it's just a space for somebody just to read their journal to me and to feel held and feel really, really safe. And that's a hugely important part of recovery, a massive part of my recovery.
I would even say celebrate the hate. Like don't pretend it's not there, and that's what's going on in the world right now, and it's not good.
If I can add to that, I think we talked about finding a safe place to share those feelings. Actually, your journal becomes a way of creating space for yourself and being able to hold the complexity of everything you feel in every situation. So in my work at Club Soda, I run our courses for people who are changing their drinking, whether they're cutting down or quitting, and we encourage people to journal and reflect, because everyone's spoken to this. As you change your drinking, whether you're significantly cutting down or whether you're going alcohol free, particularly if you've been drinking as a way of dampening down your emotional response, you're going to find suddenly you're confronted by all sorts of sometimes really ugly things going on inside of you, and giving yourself a space where you can just be honest about what's going on. It's such a gift that you can give to yourself. The other reason that I think, though, that it's that journaling can really help through this process. So I know for myself, so I'm somebody who moderates their drinking, and my change in my drinking has been like, I like to use the analogy that, some people's change is like a jump cut in a movie, and mine is much more like a slow fade over time. And it would be really easy for me to lose track of what had happened along the way, and not to remember the path that I'd taken. If you're the kind of person who's walked through a very kind of straight doorway from a really difficult relationship with alcohol to being alcohol free, you've got a very marked point in time that you can look back to. I don't have that so much, So for me, journaling has just been a way of keeping in touch with this path that unfolds as I walk it, and being able to look back. I do something which Amanda doesn't do, is that I not only reread my journals, I transcribe my journals. So I write longhand on paper. I think that's a really important for me, really important embodied practice. It's my whole body that's journaling, not my mind. So writing longhand on paper is really helpful to me. But I go back and I transcribe all of that onto my computer, and I get the opportunity to revisit those paths that I've walked before. And I get to take new perspective on my experience as well, and see how that emerges over time. And for me, that's a really valuable part of the process.
And I just wanted to add into this, just to pick up something you said in your introduction, Dru, about which links into the honesty aspect, which is that when you stop or pause or have a slight shift in your journaling, because I've noticed that I tend to pause when something comes up, and it's interesting. So when lockdown started, I became very busy with work, but I could not journal for a while, and I didn't push it, because that was also about being honest with myself, but I have started again, and it is tied into that change. But the other thing I wanted to add was that around the question about what if you hate someone, but which is a feeling you're feeling in a particular moment. But by journaling and setting it down, you might find that shifts, but also you're looking below that, and it might be a whole complex raft of emotions as well that might be tied up with lots of other things. So it's a really helpful process. And in fact, if you're, I tend not to read back my journals, and I think someone else said, well, what on earth do you do with journals? And I have hundreds of them, and after a while I throw them away. Occasionally I might look back, because sometimes I think, oh, something really helpful came up, but I think you're aware of when it does, and then you kind of have to hunt them down, which can be tricky because I also write like a spider. And but yes, I always write longhand, which was another question that's come up, because I find that helpful. But someone else has also commented about how do you recommend helping kids and teenagers start journaling? And I was going to say, and I've just been encouraging, in fact, my niece and nephew to do this, and I've just asked them to start writing in the morning, just like put a timer on and write. So it is very much automatic writing. And I said, you can write whatever you like. You can write, I hate you for making me do this, or I feel stupid, or this is so dumb. And when I talked to my nephew about it, he said, oh, I started to write, this is so dumb. But then I wrote other things, and I said, that's fine. You don't need to tell me. And it really is about giving yourself freedom, and not censoring yourself. So going back to being honest, is we all feel things, and they're feelings that you are exploring on paper, because you may not feel ready to say that out loud to someone else, but you can say it out loud to the piece of paper, and you don't have to keep that piece of paper, and you certainly don't have to frame it up and have it up as a piece of word out. It is an exploration of a moment. So I would, I just really wanted to add that in.
Thank you.
There's actually a really sorry, I was going to say there's a really interesting comment about blogging and whether it's the same thing as journaling. And I just wanted to build on something that I think we've all said about honesty. So I also write for a living, and so for me, some of journaling is actually about developing the craft of writing, as well as, a place for self-expression. But I think blogging is something very different, because essentially it's performative. You are bringing a more polished version of yourself into the world. And certainly in my own experience, that sometimes means that I'm inhibited in terms of honesty in a way that I'm not. If it's just me and the page, I can say anything. If it's me and I'm worried that a future employer might read it, or an ex-partner, or a member of my family, I'm not going to bring the same kind of truth to the experience. I do. For me, I think it's a very different thing. But does anyone else blog? And I wonder if your experience is the same as mine.
I do. Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
I'm laughing I'm sorry. I'm laughing because you're able to moderate your drinking just as the way you're able to moderate your expression, and I'm not. I'm either telling the truth or saying nothing. Or I'm either drinking or I'm not. So
that's funny. That's funny.
How you do anything is how you do everything, Dru.
Oh, that's maybe true. Yeah.
I have to say, I started blogging back in 2008 when I was drinking a lot. And for me, I would wake up every night at like 2:30 in the morning. I would, that's when the sugar would drop in my body. I would wake up from not being able to drink again. And I would get on the computer and I would write. Now, what Amanda touched on and others is that I have to be completely honest with myself in order for me to not drink and to have some type of a recovery, or whatever the words are you want to use for it. I have to be completely honest with myself. When I look back at those, Dru, when I look back at the blog entries, they're true, but they are a snapshot of my life, because I was hanging on so tightly. I was having such a hard time looking at my life. I was trying to find something beautiful in my life. It was very hard. So I would craft a blog post to see my son in the garden, or talk about I learned how to make yogurt or something. I was getting back to the land when we moved to the country. And that was true. It wasn't, but I definitely think that word performative, it was definitely only what I wanted someone to read. I didn't want them to know that I was waking up every night at 2:30 in the morning and beating the hell out of myself until sunrise. I didn't want them to know that in the blog. But when I can't even go back and read that blog, because it seems it's not fake, it's true, it happened, but the writing is definitely different. And another point that some people have made in the comments and asking, like, I feel like these journals, putting it on paper, like being embodied and writing with a pen and using my hands, this is what I teach a little bit. It's proof of life. These journals are my life. They are a catalog. They're something I can revisit. I have them all sitting right here, and I label them and I date them, and I love I love having them. And if there was a fire out here in Northern California last year, what was the first thing I grabbed? All of my journals. That is my life. And my kid, and the dog. But just like, it is so important. But I think the blogging question, I don't know. I think I do like reading blogs that people are pretty raw and direct, but I think it's hard to find without it being polished.
Amanda?
Something I find in the difference between, because I don't really write a blog anymore, but I write a newsletter, and it kind of reads like a blog. But in a blog, I have to present linearly and think, I have to organize my thoughts linearly, which is actually quite difficult for me. And in my journal, I don't do that. It's not linear. It's literally like the cat did this. Oh, look at the horse. And then there's a fly. And then, so it's literally, it's following the train of thought that is happening without organizing it. And that really helps me. But yeah, when I'm writing for someone else to read, obviously, if I did that, you would be as crazy as I am all the time. Like, you'd have to deal with my mind, and that's not fair. But I would still say that blogging, it's not part of. So again, it's like looking at the bigger picture. So in terms of creative processing, if you think of, creative processing as the orange, journaling is a pip within the orange. Is it the orange? No. But does it belong to the orange? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think I would echo all of that and just say that a blog, especially the way we write them now, because I think blogging has shifted as well, and now you write blogs for an audience, and I think sometimes you're very aware of who that audience is, whereas for me, journaling is more, I would say, akin to meditation. And in fact, over the past year or so, I've been doing the two things together, one after the other, and I keep swapping them around. So do I journal first and then meditate, or do I meditate first then journal? And it changes, and it changes depending on the day, because I with something like that, which is about me exploring what's going on for myself at the time, I try not to make too many rules. So a bit like you were saying, Amanda, yes, it is all about, the cat, and look, and there's a fly, and did I remember to buy any more milk? What's going, I must remember to, and it's complete mix of list and kind of thought and process, and sometimes I go deeper. But for me, it is very much about attending to what arises and letting it pass. And I think, as you said, Amanda, I think if anyone were to read that on any kind of blog, they would just be like, okay, crazy lady, let's move away from it. I don't want to read this anymore.
What's this about? Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Whereas I think blogs are about something, and you can be raw and honest, but they will be about one thing, and you might draw on lots of different periods of time to write.
They're organized. Yeah, they're organized. And as they say in science, everything, anything that is observed is removed from how it really is anyway, or however the scientific way of saying it is, the very fact that it is being observed changes it. There's something here that I also, if you don't mind, would love to touch on, because I think it's important in the age that we live in. The question is, something about does it matter to put pen to paper? Is it okay to type? I can't find where that question is.
I remember seeing it though, and it does say, do you type or do you
here
write?
It is. Do you all write in longhand in a physical book, or can you do it by typing? Do you feel that the physical act of putting pen to paper is important? So what I'd love to say about that is yes and no. So I do love the physical act of writing, and sometimes I'm not in a position to write. So I have many, many ways of capturing my thoughts, things I might want to inquire into, or just pieces of evidence. I see now that I'm working so intuitively towards a thing, everything is content for this, intuiting my way forward. So I have a Google Keep note app on my phone. I type into that. I very often will save my dreams in there, and you can organize by hashtags, so I can call dreams up if I need to. So I use the Google Keep app. I also use Google Drive. I'm taking photographs. My father died last year, and during that whole time, we were in hospital for a number of weeks, and it just wasn't practical to have my journaling in the hospital. So I used a combination of Google Keep and Google Drive to document the entire process. And from there, I was able to print out all those photos, and I have all the notes. And, so the journaling, me spilling out, me looking for a way to contain myself and hold myself through a process still occurred without me. I did have my little journal with me, but it happens everywhere, So I would say it's a case of, what is it, both and not either or, whatever works for you, use it. And that goes for kids
I use
too.
the note function on my phone a lot, if I'm out and about and a feeling comes up. And I quite like going back and reading them as well, because when I'm on the hop, they're even more mental and more all over the place.
Yeah, and dreams are incredible to record. And I use Voice app as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, my intuitive response to the question is that writing longhand is a really important thing, because that's a very important part. It's like a fundamental building block of how it is that I journal. And we've mentioned about embodiment. For me, there's something about typing on a keyboard which prioritizes my mind over my heart. There's something about writing longhand which does that. But I completely hear what you say, Amanda. I've had moments in time where I've owned a camera, and the visual role around me has been really important, or where I've wanted to capture the things that I've read and wrap them into my journal. And note apps and voice notes and all of those kinds of things all help build. It becomes like a collage, really, of ways of collecting experience.
Yeah, and I think different things work for different people. I'm a lot of what you're saying resonates with me, Dru, because I think I obviously approach it in a similar way, in that I will write longhand, and I found that I can now no longer write a piece of writing that is for a reader so well longhand, but I can't journal typed. So I have to write my journal longhand, and anything that I'm writing that's a little more formal, I kind of feel like I have to type it, otherwise it just feels different. But that's what works for me, and not everyone is me, thankfully, because otherwise it would be a very dull. It would be like living in a room of mirrors. But I think, and different things work at different times. So as Amanda was saying, there was a time where it was useful to use those apps and cameras. So I think, and things shift. So at one time in your life, something's great. At another time, something else works. And I think Amanda,
we're going to have to. Sorry, we're going to have to watch our time. I think, sadly, we could probably talk about journaling for ages and ages. I think we've probably got about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes left. Dru will keep me right. I would just like to say journaling is for everyone. Okay, you do not need to be a professional to journal. Just write stuff down. Somebody asked a quick question, burn it. If I'm writing something down about somebody that's really pissed me off, I take it to the sea and I burn it under the full moon. So there's loads of different ways, that we can get creative. Sam, do you want to have a last say on that, or are we tying this up now, Dru? I'm not 100% sure.
No, let's keep going for a couple of minutes. Just actually on that subject of creativity, just very briefly for myself, for a little while I noticed myself wandering around looking at people who made furniture or pottery or whatever they were doing, like creative stuff, making stuff, and thought, I wish I had a craft. And then I suddenly had this moment of realization: I'm writing every day. I have a craft. This is a creative expression, and actually investing in it as a creative expression has been transformative for me.
How often in a week do you journal, and how do you find the time? I'd say again, the weather, it's never not happening. I'm always stashing stuff away, just however it happens. If you write on the walls, do it.
I just wanted to say to the person who says for kids, yes, make all the kids you teach, this is a teacher, write, and let them write whatever they want, and they can fill it with spelling mistakes, they can write gobbledygook, they can write not real words. It's just a place they can express themselves, and then when they need to write their English essays to hand in, they can spend their time correcting those. But journaling as a form of freeing up expression is brilliant, and everyone should have a go.
I was going to say, I don't know. I mean, for me, in the community of women that I'm part of, anxiety is a big thing. So a couple of years ago, when I had these panic attacks, I used Morning Pages, Julia Cameron's Morning Pages, stream of consciousness writing. And it wasn't for any other purpose. It wasn't for a prompt. It was really a brain dump. And by being a student of Amanda's as well, she gave me permission that I could scribble my stream of consciousness onto the page so that I could really exhaust my thoughts, let it travel through my hands and purge it, and never go back and revisit those pages. And I don't, unless I'm going to paint over it, Amanda. So it's, I think that's a really helpful tool if people are inquiring like how to do it, or it's a great way to start is 3 pages of stream of consciousness writing in a journal.
Yeah. Or journal prompting. You know, look, you can find journal prompts online. I think you said you read about shed. I write about joy a lot, what brings me joy. So start by just prompting yourself and seeing what comes, and don't worry, nobody has to see it. Nobody has to see what you're writing down. Is that us now, Dru, for time? Sorry, I'm so aware of this.
I think we're pretty much done.
Away.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, and I hope that everybody can find everybody online, and I've really enjoyed it today, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsty, so much. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.